There is something you've been experiencing for quite some time, but you've never been able to fully articulate it. It manifests as an unspoken discomfort, a tightness in your chest, a fatigue that has no connection to physical exhaustion. And no, it isn't merely stress, it isn't simply anxiety, it's something entirely different. It's the consequence of having permitted too much, of having lowered your head so many times that the memory of holding it high has faded completely. And the most disturbing part, you believe this is normal. You've been conditioned to suppress, to endure, to remain quiet. You were told that by being good, by practicing patience, by showing understanding, everything would eventually resolve itself. A complete falsehood. What actually occurred is that you transformed into an emotional reservoir for everything others were unable to handle themselves. You became the effortless target for toxic behaviors that, with the passage of time, made you question even your own inherent worth. And now, when something causes you discomfort, you cannot determine if it's a legitimate reaction or if you're simply becoming overly sensitive. To be clear, it's not sensitivity. It's intuition. It's your mind desperately crying out for help. Carl Jung recognized this before anyone else did. He dedicated his entire life to exploring the profound depths of the human psyche. And what he discovered was deeply disturbing. The majority of our suffering doesn't originate from significant traumas, but from what we allow to happen in our everyday existence, from the subtle poisons, from the gestures we overlook, from the attitudes we normalize, from the boundaries we fail to defend. Jung understood that whatever you don't confront remains inside you, and what remains inside, it gradually destroys you. This message isn't designed for comfort. It isn't created to make you feel good. It's designed to awaken you, to help you see with uncompromising clarity the 7 behaviors that Jung identified as completely unacceptable. Not because they violated moral codes, but because they represent a direct threat to your identity, your integrity, your mental well-being. They function like termites. They work silently, from within, until one day you look in the mirror and no longer recognize the person staring back. But I must warn you, these behaviors don't come with obvious labels. They don't announce themselves loudly. They don't present themselves as monsters. They disguise themselves as love, as friendship, as concern, as humor. And if you aren't vigilant, you accept them. And once you accept them once, they recur. And every recurrence extinguishes something vital within you. That's why you're here now, not out of mere curiosity, not for entertainment. You're here because something deep inside you knows that enough is enough, that you can no longer continue swallowing your truth, that you need to name what you've been carrying all this time, that you need to stop permitting certain behaviors. And no, this isn't exclusively about others. It concerns you as well, because some of these behaviors you've also enacted them. And that's precisely why they hurt so profoundly. Because you don't just suffer from them, you repeat them. Not because you're inherently bad, but because no one taught you to recognize them. No one told you that this too constitutes a form of violence, that this too distances you from your authentic self. But today you're going to see it clearly. Today, behavior by behavior, you'll discover what Jung attempted to warn humanity about. And when you finish absorbing this message, you won't view certain people the same way, nor will you view yourself the same. And yes, that realization will cause pain, but it will also set you free. Are you prepared? Because once you begin this journey, there's no turning back. Something appears insignificant until it completely destroys you. Sometimes it begins with a simple gesture, an ambiguous statement, an unsolicited piece of advice, something seemingly harmless. But if it repeats continuously, if you allow it to continue unchallenged, it becomes normalized. And that's when you cease being yourself. You become what others have quietly molded, while you believed you were making your own decisions. Jung believed that every compromise with our integrity strengthens the shadow, those repressed unconscious parts of us we're too afraid to face. And the more we allow ourselves to tolerate what corrodes our identity, the more we lose sight of who we are. Let's explore the 7 behaviors Jung would have identified as threats to the soul, and what happens when you allow them into your life. 1. Covert emotional manipulation. The shadow wearing a smile. Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." One of the most dangerous ways this plays out is through emotional manipulation, subtle, quiet, but devastating. It often comes cloaked in affection. "I'm only saying this because I care about you. If you loved me, you'd do this." These aren't always obvious attacks. They're soft intrusions that wear away your will. Over time, this psychological maneuvering creates internal dissonance. You begin to question your reality, your values, your decisions. That's not love. That's the shadow of control masquerading as care. Jung saw this clearly. Those who haven't faced their own unconscious often try to live through others. Their own unresolved pain becomes a need to shape your thoughts, your behavior, your choices. Their inability to control themselves turns into a need to control you. Example: imagine a parent who uses guilt to maintain control. "After everything I've done for you, how can you even think of leaving?" You're not being loved, you're being owned. Jungian advice: strengthen the ego and confront the shadow. Recognize projection. Jung believed that manipulators project their unconscious needs onto others. Your first step is to spot this projection without absorbing it. Ask yourself, is this truly my responsibility, or am I carrying someone else's inner conflict? Set clear boundaries. Instead of reacting emotionally, respond with clarity. "That doesn't feel right to me. I need space to reflect." Individuation. Practice. Reclaim your authenticity by journaling your emotions after interactions. This reconnects you with your own inner voice. Inner affirmation: their emotions are not my burden. I return to my own center. Nu. Humiliation disguised as humor, the unconscious weapon of the insecure. Jung observed that the reason for evil in the world is that people are not able to tell their stories. When someone uses humor to shame or belittle, they're projecting parts of themselves they cannot face. What may seem like a joke is often a repressed fear or insecurity taking shape. The phrase is thrown casually: "Relax, it's just a joke." But beneath it is a message meant to cut you down, to shift the social power in the room. The laughter is real, but so is the wound. Jung knew the unconscious takes everything seriously. Every joke about your appearance, your intelligence, your personality, repeated over time, becomes part of your inner narrative. Example: in a group of friends, someone says, "You'd never survive on your own. You're too sensitive." Everyone laughs, you do too, but inside a seed of self-doubt is planted. Jungian advice: defend your persona without compromising the self. Expose the facade. Jung taught that what we laugh at often reveals what we're afraid to confront. When jokes belittle you, they are masking deeper hostility. Call it out with poise. You might say, "I'm sure you didn't mean to, but that felt like a personal jab." Let's keep it respectful. Persona work. Evaluate how often you use humor to mask discomfort yourself. Reclaim your dignity by embracing your vulnerability instead of mocking it. Inner affirmation. My presence deserves respect, not ridicule. Gaslighting, the ego's defense against the truth. Gaslighting isn't just lying, it's a systematic distortion of your reality. Jung might call this the ego defending itself at the cost of another's psyche. To protect their fragile self-image, the gaslighter projects their shadow onto you, denying your experiences, dismissing your emotions, rewriting events. Over time, you begin to believe them. You internalize their false narratives. Your inner voice, once clear and intuitive, becomes faint and confused. Jung warned that when we refuse to integrate the shadow, we unconsciously force others to carry it. Gaslighting is a perfect example. It's not about you being dramatic. It's about someone avoiding responsibility by making you doubt yourself. Example: you say, "What you said yesterday hurt me." They reply, "I never said that. You're imagining things. You're too sensitive." That's not a disagreement, it's psychological warfare. Jungian advice: strengthen inner authority and trust inner images. Trust your intuition. Jung taught that the unconscious sends truth through dreams, body signals, and gut feelings. Use a dream journal or active imagination to reconnect with your instincts. Reality checks. Write down what happened before you're talked out of it. When someone contradicts you, return to your own record. This builds ego strength. Shadow integration. Identify the fear that makes you doubt yourself. Are you afraid of abandonment, conflict, being wrong? Integrate that fear by accepting it, not obeying it. Inner affirmation. I own my perception. My truth is valid, even if others deny it. 4. Emotional invalidation. When your inner world is declared irrelevant. Jung taught that emotions are the language of the soul. To dismiss them is to silence your inner guide. Yet emotional invalidation happens constantly. You're overreacting. It's not that big a deal. You're just making this up. Each time this happens, a part of you is told to stay quiet, to disappear. And slowly you begin to comply. You don't speak up, you don't express. You become emotionally muted, hollowed out by shame and self-censorship. Unexpressed emotions, Jung said, don't die. They go underground. They become symptoms: depression, anxiety, rage, fatigue. When someone invalidates your experience, they are not just minimizing your feelings, they are asking you to abandon your psyche. Example: a friend rolls their eyes when you talk about being anxious before a job interview. You stop talking. But that anxiety doesn't disappear. It turns inward, growing heavier with silence. Jungian advice: reintegrate rejected feelings and embrace the feeling function. Validate yourself first. Jung emphasized balancing thinking and feeling. Ask, what emotion am I feeling and why, before seeking outside validation. Feeling work. Try writing unsent letters to people who've invalidated you. Express everything freely. This gives your emotional world form and respect. Amplification. Use Jung's technique of amplifying symbols. If sadness feels like a storm, explore that image in art or writing. It strengthens your emotional literacy. Inner affirmation. My feelings are real, valuable, and worth expressing. Man. Silent contempt, the coldest form of rejection. There. Fears cruelty in silence. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of punishment, of erasure. Jung called this the failure of empathy, the refusal to relate. Contempt doesn't come with words. It's the lack of acknowledgement, the absence of response, a subtle but intentional withdrawal designed to make you feel invisible, unworthy, insignificant. This psychological abandonment is a trauma with no bruises. In Jungian terms, contempt is a projection of one's own inferiority. When someone feels too weak to confront their shadow, they dehumanize you instead. It's a way to feel superior by reducing someone else. Example, you express your needs, they stop replying. No argument, no apology, just absence. This ghosting is not about peace, it's about control. Jungian advice: reclaim the self from the shadow of rejection. Name the dynamic. Jung said what we do not make conscious appears as fate. If someone is punishing you with silence, recognize it for what it is: emotional control. Practice solitude consciously. If they withdraw, don't chase. Instead, engage in solitude as empowerment, not abandonment. Meditate, reflect, or pursue self-expression, inner dialogue. Ask your inner child, what do you need right now? This reconnects you with the part of you that's being emotionally starved. Inner affirmation: their silence is not a mirror of my worth. Glorified. Self-sacrifice, the disguised death of the self. Jung viewed the self, not the ego, as the true center of our being. Every act of unnecessary self-sacrifice that disconnects you from your center is an act of spiritual fragmentation. But society doesn't call it that. Society calls it virtue, selflessness, being a good person. You're praised for never saying no, for always putting others first, but the cost: your identity, your needs, your voice. Over time, this turns into a martyr complex, one Jung warned of frequently. You begin to equate love with suffering, to equate worth with utility, and without even realizing it, you disappear from your own life. Example, you cancel your vacation again because your partner had a rough week. They don't ask, you just do it. And in that silence, you move a step further away from your center. Jungian advice: develop the self, not just the persona. Unmask the martyr complex. Jung viewed compulsive sacrifice as a false virtue that keeps you from individuation. Ask, am I doing this from love or from fear of being unloved? Reclaim selfishness as self-honor. Jung wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Prioritize your needs without guilt. Shadow work. If saying no makes you feel selfish, explore that. Where did you learn that? Your needs come last. Whose voice is that? Inner affirmation: my needs matter. Self-respect is sacred, not selfish. 7. Acceptance of contempt, the final surrender of the psyche. This is the deepest collapse. When all the previous poisons have worked their way through your soul, this is what remains: the belief that mistreatment is normal, that it's your fault, that you deserve it. Jung called this state psychic death, not physical but spiritual. You become so disconnected from yourself that even hope seems absurd. You settle for crumbs. You stay in harmful relationships because the pain of being alone feels worse than the pain of being erased. This is the final, most tragic betrayal of the self. When the ego, crushed and confused, fully submits to the narrative others have written for it. Example, you hear, you're lucky anyone even puts up with you, and instead of leaving, you agree. That's not love. That's enslavement of the soul. Jungian advice: Reintegrate the exiled self and seek real connection. Withdraw projections. Jung warned that when we seek approval too desperately, we give our power to others. Reclaim that power by asking, what part of me am I abandoning for love? Reparenting the self. Offer yourself the affection you seek from others. Say aloud, I see you. You belong here. I won't abandon you again. Active imagination. Visualize confronting someone who treats you with contempt. In the image, stand your ground. Let your unconscious rewire the power dynamic. Inner affirmation. I am worthy of connection that does not cost me my soul. Carl Jung never meant for his work to be comfortable. He meant it to awaken, to confront, to demand transformation. He believed the only way out is into the unconscious, into the shadow, into the pain you've buried beneath years of tolerance. These 7 behaviors are not just bad habits. They are violations of the self. They corrode your inner world, fracture your identity, and trap you in cycles of self-betrayal. But once you see them, you can't unsee them. The question is, what will you do now? Will you return to your routines, your false peace, your smiling surrender, or will you begin the real work, the alchemical process Jung spoke of individuating, of becoming whole, of walking away from every quiet violence you've been taught to accept? Because here's the truth, nothing you lose from honoring yourself was ever truly yours, and what you gain, that's the beginning of real freedom.